Previously on this YouTube channel, I made a little video about trying a bunch of free-to-play games to try to find one I liked. Warframe was one of them, and it happened to be my favorite of all the ones I tried. Will I play this again? Yeah, absolutely. I'm probably playing it right now. So I'm just back to talk about it some more, I guess. This definitely isn't going to be like a comprehensive overview for fellow new players or anything like that. This is just an extended first impression, second impression. A shout out to the handful of people who commented on the other video encouraging me to stick with it. I've been having a really great time. There's so much to do in here. I'm constantly in disbelief that this game is free. The hour or so I spent playing it initially was enough to get me hooked, but I've been constantly surprised and delighted to discover that there's so much more in here than just the drop-in, complete objective, and extract, brain-off combat loop that I expected most of it to be. And that part is also very fun and frankly kind of meditative in a way. I'm really glad I just jumped in and didn't really do any research into the game beforehand because I had the added little treat of discovering all this stuff on my own. So sorry if I'm ruining all these little surprises for you, but here's just some of the things I've found so far. There's fishing in here. There's robot fishing. There's fishing, floating skyfish fishing. There's gemstone mining with a laser beam. I don't know what it says about me as a person, but I find this to be relaxing. Sometimes I'll turn on the game and just get on my little exercise bike and just run around zapping mining nodes for like half an hour. There's a hover skateboard and you do tricks for points, and then these kids that live in an air vent will tell you that you're cool. You can collect little plush animals as a reward for tranquilizing and rescuing wildlife, and then you can display them in your ship. You can have a dog and you can pet your dog. You can change the colors of your dog. You can change the colors of almost everything in this game. There's also an entire like decoration system, but you have to acquire a bunch of little things to decorate your ship with. But one thing I found is this ability to turn on Christmas tree lights. And let me tell you, the first time I turned this on, I was standing there admiring the lights and the little occasional sort of sleigh bell sound that plays, and when I turned around, I got really jump scared by this snowman. You can also get a giant space cat, and they're even more customizable, I think. I've seen a novella-length Google Doc about how to strategically breed them, so I do see that for me in my future once I finally manage to get one, because they're really difficult to find, and they're even more difficult to scan, and I haven't gotten a single genetic code off of any of them yet. There's a whole bunch of single-player story quests with cinematic cutscenes, great voice performances, beautiful instrumental music, and original songs. There's a sea shanty hiding in here. Speaking of, there's ship combat, and let me tell you, as a lifelong ship combat hater, because I'm very bad at it, I actually really enjoy it in this game. And probably the biggest thing of all is there's essentially an entire second game inside the game. Are you tired of the same loop of running and gutting? Surprise, there's a roguelike in here with slower paced dodge, roll, parry combat, packaged up with a generous helping of charming little mini-games. And a horse. They hid a horse in here from me. So if you tried to get into this game or have looked at getting into it, but the thing that's stopping you is being really intimidated by how complicated it seems, I'm here to tell you that yeah, actually there's so much stuff in here, it's very complicated. I'm constantly having to Google stuff. In fact, unless I've been entirely oblivious to the in-game instructions, Googling stuff and relying heavily on Reddit posts and the Warframe wiki is absolutely necessary for progress and having a general good time, I think. There's also an in-game question chat, like if you can't figure out how to do something, you can ask in here and people will help you. Honestly, that could be a pretty major criticism of the game for some people. It very often just does not tell you how to play it. I've personally enjoyed the constantly looking stuff up element, but your mileage definitely may vary. But I'm delighted to tell you that it's also entirely possible to bumble around and just kind of no thoughts, head empty, brute force your way through the increasingly difficult levels with basic starter weapons and eventually ones that the game just gives you during story quests, by just haphazardly slapping whichever mods sound good onto everything and then just bullet jumping past all the enemies when things get really dicey, because that's basically what I've been doing. Will this strategy get you an optimized build, the fanciest frames, the best weapons, and all the customizations you want? No, absolutely not. That's going to take hours upon hours of grinding and honestly probably a series of spreadsheets to keep yourself on task. But listen, if you play far enough into the story quest, the game will give you a fish tank for your ship, and you can put fish that you've caught in there for free and they swim around. And as far as I can tell, these fish aren't going to break my heart by suddenly dying like the ones on the Normandy in Mass Effect. Also, it's extremely easy to get your first dog. There's a whole little quest related to it that pops off really early. And with a dog and a fish tank, what more can you possibly need? I do get a little envious when I go into one of the public hubs and I see some of the really cool Warframe designs that people have put together. Like one time I saw maybe a Loki, the hammerhead shark guy with like dangly star earrings, and I really wanted that, but then I looked up what I'd have to do to farm all the parts for a Loki, and that particular like helmet is probably a premium cosmetic, and I was like, well, I guess I don't need it right now. Actually, I've been having so much fun playing through everything with my starter Excalibur. I've become really attached to him, so I don't feel a super strong desire to get a bunch of different Warframes at this point. I did build a Rhino because I just happened to end up with most of the parts and decided to put in the work to finish building him just to kind of do it, and the iron skin ability is really nice, but it's no exalted blade. I'm just too addicted to being able to basically leisurely stroll through the mission, casually slicing everyone in half with my glowing pink swords. And now I've got the cooler Excalibur as well, so I'm pretty set, I think. Rhino is really great for the Deviri circuit though, so I can just simply say no thank you to ever taking any damage. The circuit is just something I started doing like only a week ago. You don't even have to do a bunch of tedious grinding and waiting and hoping for certain Warframe parts to drop if you don't want to. You can just wait until one you want to build shows up here as a reward choice and play through the levels. It's actually a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. I built a Titania because I thought her abilities looked really cool after I played her side quest, but I don't think I actually like playing them that much. So she unfortunately might be the first one on the chopping block when and if I do run out of Warframe slots. I do really want an Oberon eventually because I got to play as him during a Deviri thing, and a big deer man paladin that magically grows tactical patches of grass and can levitate and slam enemies to the ground like a Jedi is exactly my aesthetic. Also maybe a Mesa. She's got a cool little jacket, and maybe it would force me to not be like a melee only person for once. As with all free-to-play games, there is always a catch of there being like an in-game premium currency that you pay for with real-world money, and in Warframe that currency is platinum. Full disclosure, I have actually spent $4.99 on the game so far because one of the days my login like reward was a 50% off coupon, and I wanted more Warframe slots. But the cool thing about Warframe is apparently it's entirely possible to make a bunch of platinum without ever spending any real-world money. You can trade items for platinum with other players. There's a third-party website dedicated to advertising stuff you want to buy or sell. So technically someone down the line did open their wallet, but you do not have to. I haven't actually gotten into this yet because honestly I'm pretty happy with what I've got going so far, and I'm like a socially feral recluse who's scared of initiating a human interaction, but I am hoarding away prime sets for the future. There's also the Nightwave thing. It presents you with rotating daily and weekly challenges, most of which are pretty easy to knock out really quickly, and as you level up through that, you get stuff for free that normally would cost platinum. And then this guy shows up every 2 weeks to sell things for another special currency type that you earn by selling the prime parts that you've earned by opening relics that have dropped during missions, and then you run special relic opening missions, and then you sell them at a little kiosk in the relay concourse, except sometimes you can't get to him because he shows up at a relay that is inaccessible to you because you haven't made it to that planet yet. It's not complicated at all. Probably the most significant factor in me getting as thoroughly hooked on this game so quickly is the cross-save feature, which is apparently kind of new, so I'm lucky that I just started playing it when it already existed. I started off playing on PC, but when I learned both that I could continue on the same account on my aging PlayStation 4, and that PlayStation is a lying little liar, and you in fact do not need a PlayStation Plus subscription to have access to it, a lot of my time after that has been spent over there in the living room on the couch. Are the load times significantly slower? Yes, but they're really not unbearable to me personally. I play exclusively solo, so it's not ruining anyone else's day, just mine. I'd say the most notable thing is that after completing a mission, it can take like 30 to 60 seconds sometimes for the exit button to pop up. And when you load into any of the hubs, everyone looks like a glowing, featureless Excalibur instead of their actual character for a little while. I have had like maybe 3 scary times where the game kind of froze for a second and I thought it was going to crash, but it never actually did. But all that doesn't really matter to me because the thing is, I've got a nearly 18-year-old cat that demands a minimum of about 2 hours of lap time per evening and will gladly take more, so it works really great for us. She will not sit on my lap while I'm at the computer, only if I'm on the couch with a bunch of fuzzy blankets. She has a little bed here on the desk next to the monitor, but she just sits there and stares at me with the tiredest, saddest expression possible until I relocate to the couch, and she's my little old baby, so she gets whatever she wants. And playing Warframe keeps me from doom scrolling on my phone during couch lap time, and that's really helpful in this day and age. And there's a secret advantage to really slow loading times. You have more time to admire the orbiter swooping around, looking like a cute little robot stingray or something. So while there are ample opportunities to spend the rest of your life grinding to get all the special stuff you want out of this game, so far what's keeping me most locked in is the large amount of story quests. For reference, I'm part of the way through Whispers in the Walls at the time of recording this. I've really enjoyed all the story content so far. There's a lot of great twists and turns and surprises, so I'm going to try to be vague about details in case anybody is watching this that wants to play it for themselves. I personally have really enjoyed being slowly drip-fed reveals about the lore as I've been playing, but I can see it as being kind of a point of frustration to some new players, and they end up bouncing off before they even get to the start of the real meaty stuff, because I think the big story quests don't start popping off until you get to Neptune, maybe? It's a decent amount of work to get there. There's an incredible story quest that you could just about consider as almost an entire game in itself. I think it took me around 6 or 7 hours to do, and it's gated behind not only many, many hours of general gameplay to get to the point in the progression where it unlocks, but also you need to build or buy kind of a special mech suit, basically. And that was like a week-long affair for me, gathering stuff to sell to raise my standing with the faction, to be able to buy parts from them, and then gathering more stuff to buy blueprints, to build special components, and then waiting for it all to cook up in the foundry. The foundry is another location where the game does kind of subtly entice you to spend platinum. A lot of the build times for items are very long, and you can spend platinum to speed them up. I had to keep a little guide written out on my tablet next to me on the couch to get through it. It honestly wasn't that bad for me since I had already been compulsively running around fishing and mining for fun anyway, but I can see this alone being a pretty annoying roadblock to some players. And considering a lot of brand new players, myself kind of included, are jumping in right now because of all the promotion they've seen for the newest update, Warframe 1999, only to discover that it's going to take weeks, if not months, to get there. I can see a lot of people with actual lives and other stuff to do bouncing off before they ever get there, and that bums me out a bit because I think the story is really cool and a lot of people would really enjoy it if they're able to get to it. I think this is my favorite type of weird sci-fi story, the kind that just throws you into the world with very little explanation and leaves you feeling constantly low-level confused. I do kind of wish I would have looked up a suggested quest order before I started, because some of the quests actually unlock earlier in sort of the timeline than they would have if you had been playing the game, for the past several years, if that makes any sense. Like a story quest update that released, I think, maybe last year unlocks way earlier than story quests that released several years ago. So basically, once I got to the second dream quest, I was initially a little frustrated that I had already jumped into Deviri before I got there, because once I got through it, I think it makes a lot more sense narratively to start Deviri after you've already met certain characters in sort of the regular timeline rather than before. But as I kept going, it really doesn't matter because there's so much timeline / reality shifting wishy-washy stuff going on that it ends up being fine. But personally, in my opinion, my advice to new players is to wait to start Deviri until after you do at least the second dream, even though it unlocks way earlier, if you care about the story that much. If you just want to jump in and play the game, it's fine, it'll all come together eventually. The story quests just keep getting cooler and more strange. The environmental designs are all really unique to each area. I honestly don't understand how this game is only taking up 42 gigs on my computer. The game also just looks really nice. Like the textures and reflections look a lot fancier than I would have expected, kind of, for a free-to-play game. I actually find myself getting a little annoyed sometimes that there's not like a free cam photo mode or something because I want to get closer and look at all the little props and stuff. The story quests keep things really fresh by often introducing new mechanics that sometimes are just for that particular mission. A lot of the earlier main quests, the very beginning, and the smaller scale side quests and like Warframe specific quests are kind of just regular mission types with added voice line flavor, but they're still really fun. But the further you get into the story, the more creative and unexpected the quests become, and I'm really excited to see where it goes next. I've gotten a tiny bit spoiled myself because I keep seeing screenshots on Reddit, and apparently there's like an AOL instant messenger type of mechanic to talk to the new characters in 1999. I'm very excited. I will take the nostalgia bait. And based on what seems to be a very dedicated, decently sized player base and Digital Extreme's history of very regular content updates over the past several years, I'm pretty confident that when I do reach the end of the story quest, I won't have long to wait for more. And I have plenty of stuff to do in the meantime. So even though according to my codex it looks like I'm barreling towards the end of the currently available story content, there's still so much I haven't even started to really interact with this game. There's this yucky room in the back of the orbiter, apparently a whole thing. I've never hunted an eidolon. I did chase one around, shooting at it for about 20 minutes to absolutely no effect. Apparently there's a whole complicated process I need to go through to get rid of this guy who keeps stealing all my stuff every time I run a mission on Earth. I barely understand the mod system, if I'm being really honest. I'm gonna have to do some research and start getting better because honestly I'm getting my ass kicked in the Zeramin. I can get through the missions, but it's not a good time. I have a lot of the star chart to deal with yet. I basically just ran from junction to junction to try to unlock planets as fast as I could, and I need to go back and finish all the nodes. I need more flower pots. I need stuff to decorate my orbiter. I just have this one flower pot and it's really lonely. I don't think I really need one necessarily, but I do want to build a custom K drive because I just want one that looks cool. Do I need one of these like robot dogs? Probably. I guess I need to start a dojo. I keep seeing references to weapons and warframes and stuff that's only accessible through there. I don't understand what arcanes do. I have a couple ribbon mods in my inventory, but I haven't taken the time to figure out like how they actually work or how to use them or what the whole deal with that is. I haven't built any prime frames or weapons yet. I don't have a cat. I've barely interacted with the syndicate system other to inadvertently get most of them really mad at me to the point where it feels like more likely than not they're gonna bust into any mission I'm running and try to murder me. Anyway, I'm just excited. I'm having fun. It's a great time. There's so much to do in this game. I think it's going to keep me really busy for a really long time. And between this and probably reinstalling Baldur's Gate 3 when the new patch with the new subclasses comes out, I'm just going to be happy and distracted, and I won't even have time to feel tempted to buy any other games. So until then, my wish list will just keep getting longer and longer, and I'll just be here doing this.